All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get started here. So first off, thank y'all for logging on here. We're just gonna kind of go over, really if it's your first time buying a home or if it's been a while since you've ever done it. This is just a good refresher. We'll go into a little bit of, kind of what we're seeing in the market, how the COVID has affected everything, and just basically the basic steps of home ownership, planning out your time frame, a little bit of the pre-approval process we'll go into, but of course this can all be done on a much more individualized basis with your agent. Once you get to that point, and we'll kind of talk about when that ideal time is, and just the more individualized it is, because everybody's time frame is different, everybody's current situations are different, whether you currently own a home or you're renting, and when that lease ends, where you're looking, your current pre-approval status, all that good stuff. So we'll just go ahead and hop in here. My name's Tyler Carter. I'm with the Curtin team of Keller Williams Realty. We are here in downtown Roswell. I personally live in the Buckhead area. So I'm really from, as far as the areas I work, really from all the way from, downtown Atlanta, East Atlanta, West Midtown, basically in like a pie shape, all the way up, up 75 towards Kennesaw, Canton, all the way up 85 to Beaufort, basically the whole, North Metro Atlanta area. So let's see here. All right, there's our team. So does anybody, just real quick, and don't feel forced to chime in if you don't want to, but if anybody's got any any questions they won't answer during this, if you got anything really specific that you want me to go into, does anybody have anything? And if not, no worries, because I think we'll cover just about everything. All right, because we're going to cover basically the fears and facts of home buying, and what those will mean to you, and maybe how what your realizations are of the current market today, kind of some of the different factors that we've had go on here with the COVID, and just what we've seen with home prices, interest rates, all that good stuff. We're going to go over the 6 simple steps to home ownership, go into a little bit of the financing as well, and then next steps, depending on no matter what time you're looking to do this, what your next step should be if towards home ownership. So just a couple of the fears and facts. One of the fears people have is I can't afford to buy a home right now, and the fact is you really don't know until you do the math. Talk with a lender and see what you can actually get pre-approved for. There's a lot of different down payment options, which we'll go into, but basically just at least talking with the lender early on to see if you're not pre-approved for your ideal amount right now, what you can do to get there. The other fear is, I should wait until the market gets better. That's definitely been one we've heard a lot, because, prices are high right now, or at least they're back to, the levels they were before the 2008 crash. And so, really how we say is there's never a wrong time to buy the right home for you, especially, if you're renting, and just, how much that saves you, is regardless of the prices. If you're going to be in a home for, several years, there's really no bad time, because you're always going to make a better financial situation there than if you had been renting. The other fear is, I don't have, money for the down payment. And that's one thing I said earlier is, there's a lot of different down payment options. If you're a veteran, the government does pay you back for that a little bit. And, there are VA loans, there's different, first-time home buyer incentives and programs, as low as, 3% down. So, traditionally it's been, the big 20%. So some people have that, I don't have, 20% to put down. And, there's, how we like to say is, there's definitely options out there. And the other fear is, I can't afford to buy my dream home. And the best way to get closer to buying your dream home is to, flip that equity into the next home. You just got to get into a home so that you can keep transferring that on to the next one. And I'll talk a little bit later about, how you can, best use that equity. No one ever buys their dream home on their first home unless they, hit the lottery or something. So, how you get into that dream home is just, buying that first one. So just a couple of points here of like, why should you buy now? First off, interest rates right now are super low. They're around the 3.5% range, depending on your credit score and how much money you're putting down is going to be the biggest factors in determining that interest rate. But that is so low. We just had to update this slide from when we created this whole presentation about a year ago, and we were telling everybody, hey, they were low then, and they are at, they were at 4.6% about this time last year. I was talking to my parents yesterday and was like, they have just officially paid their house off, and they were like, when we bought our house in '89, they had a 10.5% interest rate. And so I'll talk a little bit more about, what that means for you. But basically, regardless of prices, the interest rates are so low that it makes those prices not hurt as bad, if that makes sense. So two, the biggest thing is, you grow your long-term investment. You have an equity buildup. If you can see this little graph here, you buy your first home, you stay in it for, a year, 2 years, 3 years. And let's say you get to that $15,000 equity point, you flip that into your next home, use the proceeds of that money into, basically the down payment or, paying, so you're able to get a smaller loan. So your payment, even though you're going up in house size, may stay about the same, or maybe a little more, maybe a little less, depending on, how long you're in that home. And then, here you go on to the next one. So, that big expensive house that you eventually want to be in, how you get to that is just, flipping that equity as you pay on it over the years. And then, you also have, of course, the pride of home ownership, the stability and security, not having to worry about, is your rent going to go up? If you've ever rented that, after that first year lease, the apartment complex are always going to come. It seems like that amount is always just enough to make you not want to move. You have to debate on like, do I want to pack up all my stuff and go find another place, pay more application fees, another security deposit, all that, and so just, that security that, you were locked into that rate, and that, you don't have to deal with, always shuffling around on the rental side. And then, of course, the sense of community that you have, depending on what you're looking for there, some people, aren't big fans of big communities, but, all that comes with that. You of course are able to make it your own, and you have the freedom to customize. There's of course tax benefits as well. And then with the equity, like I was saying, it's truly wealth building. So, that's just a couple of reasons of why to buy now. A couple of reasons of why not to buy now, because we're just going to be honest with you. If you are, let me skip ahead of this slide right here. So, why to hold off buying is, if your job security is, if you think that you're going to be moving out of town sometime soon, or, you're kind of in between jobs, probably not the best time. If what you get pre-approved for is just too expensive, we never want to make anybody house poor. So, if based off of what you pre-approved for, that interest rate, if that is probably still not going to be more than what you're renting for in the same area. But, if you, have roommates now or such, we don't want anybody to ever be house poor. Financial reasons, stuff like credit score, if you don't have the, the down payment, those are definitely reasons to hold off. But, just talk with a lender, which I'll go into later, as soon as possible, to really see what your credit score is. I know there's a lot of sites out there that you can pull your credit score, but, they can look at it in a lot deeper of a view and tell you that if you want to get that credit score up, what you can do. If you're anything like me, I never had a credit card. I didn't have bad credit. I just had no credit. Always paid cash for everything, just, never had a credit card. And that was one of the things I could do in order to, get my credit up, is to actually get a credit card and pay it off responsibly. And so, talking with a lender, even if you're, if you do have credit right now, but it's not the best score, which will affect everything, there's definitely an order that you can pay stuff off in. And maybe it's not always the most expensive things that you can, pay stuff off in a certain order to get that credit score up the highest, the quickest. And then, of course, if you feel like you're going to be a short-term owner, if you plan on not being in the home for 2 or 3 years or more, and, then it doesn't really make too much sense, because you're not going to have enough equity to deal with anything. You're, going to have real estate commissions and stuff to pay. You're not going to, probably 2 or 3 years, not going to have enough appreciation for it to make sense. So, if you can't look at a place and say, yeah, I'm for sure living here for, 2 or 3 years, then, that's another reason to hold off buying. So just to go back here, when I was talking about those interest rates earlier, historically, what you see in the gray is basically everything else that comes with what you pay on your mortgage a month. And then the principal and interest is that little blue circle there, which is, the meat of it. And then today, that percentage is probably even lower than 15%. So now, what this graph is representing is that, now a bigger portion of your mortgage is going towards actually paying off your mortgage and not, other things. So, it's just one of the benefits of those low interest rates. So a little bit about, owning versus renting. How I like to just basically sum up this whole slide is that renting is like taking whatever your rental is. Let's, for this example, we're going to use $1,500 a month. Renting's like taking that $1,500 out of your left pocket and just giving it away. You're basically paying somebody else's mortgage. You're going to your landlord, after you've been in your year lease, that $1,500 that you paid every month is gone. Owning is a lot different, to where you're basically taking that $1,500 out of your left pocket and putting it towards your right, or putting it in your right pocket. That money, basically remains yours. Yes, it's tied up in equity in your home, but it's not money lost. So you're truly growing an asset there. So, this is something I'm just going to touch really broadly, because it's going to depend so much on where you're looking. If you're looking for a condo in East Atlanta versus a single family home in Roswell, our average home price and all that's going to be a lot different. Buyers versus sellers market. Basically, just about everywhere we are in a pretty heavy sellers market. Even after COVID kind of slowed everybody down. And now that we're out of that, specifically right now, and for the foreseeable future, it's going to be a seller's market. A lot of stuff's moving very quickly. Inventory is low. Prices are high, but, because of those low interest rates, you do have a good amount of buyers on market and not enough inventory, which makes it a seller's market. That can be a little less of a seller's market in different markets, as far as, areas and price range, but just about everywhere, and unless it's, high luxury, is a seller's market. And like I said, one of the reasons for that is the low interest rates. And of course, the growth that we have seen here in Atlanta. Atlanta's population has boomed over the last several years, and projections just say that it's going to go up even more. So especially in the Atlanta market, we're seeing a lot of this seller's market because we just have so much population growth and our inventory is not able to keep up with it. So just going to go through the 60 steps to homeownership. The first step is, talking with the agent, no matter when that time is, securing the pre-approval for your financing. And then we go into the fun part, which is the finding of your home. And then we, of course, make an offer and negotiate. We get the home inspected and then negotiate for any repairs. And then at that point, we close and become a homeowner. So I'm gonna go in these steps a little bit more. As your agent, a responsible agent who's educated about the market is gonna be able to help you best. You need to look for, definitely interview agents. Find an agent who, does a good amount of deals. I know it seems like, in today's world, everybody knows a real estate agent, but, how many deals a year are they seeing, which in real estate, basically the only way that you get experience is, the amount of deals that you do. So, definitely interview agents, analyze, they're going to analyze your wants and needs analysis and make sure that y'all are a good fit. They're going to steer you to homes, for lack of a better word, that, fit your criteria. They're not going to, they're going to be honest with you and tell you that, hey, if, you're only pre-approved up to 200, maybe finding a move-in ready home in Roswell is not the most realistic. So, they're going to be should be, very, very honest with you, because, the respect for your time is probably the biggest thing, and sometimes bad news is hard to give, but, just giving you the most realistic advice. They're going to negotiate on your behalf, so they should have, very strong negotiating skills and, kind of be versed in contracts, because they're going to go to bat for you. And, of course, they're going to solve any problems that may arise. But I think the biggest thing with an expert agent is that they do things so that those problems never arise. A lot of times no calls to you and no big problems or hurdles that we had to deal with can be, a lot of those times those things can be avoided by just, staying on top of everything and, being very professional in what you do. And especially with it being your, only job. Sometimes there's realtors out there that, they have multiple jobs. And so you just got to find the realtor that, is the best fit for you as far as, their expertise level, the time they're able to give you, and like I said, make sure that y'all work good together. So in the buyer's representation agreement, that's, sets a mutual expectation in writing. It's the same thing as basically a listing agreement if somebody was selling a home, but, it commits that agent to, finding the perfect home for you. And it says, basically that, that we're working together, and that I'm allowed to go to bat for you and put your, and that legally I have to put your best interest up front and at heart. So this is an exercise that's another one that's better to do on a more individual basis. But I just want to share it real quick here to basically show, a good agent will go through this exercise with you, and to kind of plan out of, if you're in a lease right now, and let's say your lease is ending, let's say for the sake of the argument, your lease ends at the end of December, December 31st. You'll want to work backwards so that you close on your home a little bit earlier than that. If you want to do any work to the home, you'll want to do that, typically after closing. All that work, carpet, paint, all that stuff's easier to do without furniture and all that stuff in the home. Getting contractors in is just way easier. But basically, we'd like to say, no matter what your time frame is, if it's in the next couple of years and you're backing up, go ahead and start working with the agent now, because they can do a lot of things like, setting you up on a search to kind of get you educated to the market, so that when you are ready, all you're doing is just pulling the trigger and you're not playing catch up in learning the market. And, they can connect you with a lender and get your, finances in order. If you feel like you're still a couple years out, no worries, because like I said, there's things you can do to increase credit scores, save your down payment money, and, kind of, if you don't pre-qualify for your ideal amount right now, talking with a lender to see what you can do to get to that amount. But yeah, this is something that, is definitely, a good exercise to do on an individual basis, depending on, what each client's current situation is. So step 2 is securing the financing. We always want to get a pre-approval. It's a lot more concrete than a pre-qualification. Pre-approval says, you are, for sure going to get the loan, and because they've looked at everything. A pre-qualification says that, it's a really quick conversation. It basically says, well, if everything you're telling me is true and I'm not looking into anything, you sound about like that you could get that loan. So we always want to make sure that we can get a pre-approval, not a pre-qualification. It's one of those words that's thrown out a lot, but there is a big difference between the two. Here on the right here is 2 of the lenders that we work with. We definitely have lender options here on the team that, will fit your needs. Ben and Candace with Capital Mortgage Solutions, they're local here in Woodstock. We also have Keller Mortgage through Keller Williams Realty. That's a, no application fee, no appraisal fee loan. So that's definitely a good option for people as well. But, always ask your friends and family who they used. Make sure you had a good experience with them, because it's not always, just about the cheapest. Rates and closing costs are definitely very important, but you want to make sure that lender gets you to the closing table on time. We don't have any hiccups, because that can, really bring in and make the whole process way more stressful. So, always ask around and see, who your friends and family have used, maybe, you know, if you connect with an agent, who they use, and because usually that's going to be your best resource because they have, you know, trust them, worked together before, and, you know, those lenders kind of have to, you know, give the realtor's clients the best service, or, you know, obviously they wouldn't recommend those. Okay, so just real quick, I'm not going to go into mortgages too much because that's definitely more of an individual discussion. And I think, you know, talking with a lender will definitely get you there. But, you know, down payments, like I said, there's different options there. Terms, you know, basically, you know, there's 15 years and 30 years. And there's basically also, you know, times anywhere between there. They're definitely a lot more flexible than they used to be. And then interest rates, you know, those are always fluctuating as well. This is a little graph of what actually makes up a mortgage payment. You have your principal, which actually pays towards the, you know, equity of the home. If you bought a home for $250, you know, $250 divided by, you know, 12 months divided by 30 years, or however long your term is, that is the principal that you're gonna be paying on a month. The interest, everyone knows what interest is, but, you know, that pays the lender for, you know, the actual cost of the money and the loan. Taxes, you know, you're of course always going to have taxes. Those, you know, fluctuate from areas to areas, county to county, size of home, purchase price, amount of land, all those things. But, you know, taxes are a part of that mortgage payment as well. And then of course, insurance, you know, your homeowner's insurance is, you know, definitely a requirement. So it's that's counted into that as well. Down payment, like I said, there's definitely different options, anywhere from 3% to 20% or more than that. You know, if you get to the 20% amount is usually ideal because you avoid the PMI. But I remember when I bought my first home, even with the PMI, you know, cash is king. And so I found out that, you know, I didn't have to put the full 20% down, and it was worth a little bit higher of a monthly payment for me in order to not put that much cash down. And I was like, well, I can always pay it down later, but, you know, cash is always king. So there's definitely different options there. But the good part about talking to the lender is they will tell you, hey, based off your pre-qualification at 250, here's what your monthly payment's going to be. At 275, here's what your monthly payment's going to be. So you're able to actually, when you go into a 250 home and a 275 home, actually know what those numbers are. And, you know, hey, is this $100 extra a month, or is it $10 extra a month? So that's very important to know. And then, you know, once you find that home, kind of working backwards to say, if you are flexible on your down payment, all right, if I put 20% down, how much do I pay a month? If I put, you know, 15% down, how much do I pay per month? And, you know, then that's the best way to make your decision. And it's really hard to do that until you really get, you know, your hands dirty and get into the process. That down payment amount, that can come from, you know, side jobs, savings, parents, in-laws, gift funds, you know, inheritances. You know, there are a little bit of qualifications on what you need to do with those funds, but however, you know, those funds can basically come from anywhere. Because some people always like, you know, hey, can I use money from this? If it's cash, it has to be seasoned in an account for so long. Everything has to be tracked, which is what we'll get into next. But, you know, basically those funds can come from just about anywhere. So we always want to maintain pre-approval. Sometimes when people get that pre-approval, they think that they're done. But however, basically, anytime you're looking for a home, you kind of got a magnifying glass on you and your finances. So no big purchases. Don't go out and apply for a new credit card, or, you know, don't add any debt onto yourself. No job changes. You know, never want to, you know, quit a job in the middle of it, because that'll definitely nick your pre-qualification. And, you know, you want to protect your down payment. You know, definitely don't spend your down payment before you know, get to your home, or, you know, if you have that money in the stock market or whatever, you want to go ahead and pull that money out, because, you know, as we saw with the COVID stuff, crazy stuff can happen pretty quickly. You know, some people think, and I've had some very educated, high price clients who have, you know, even they didn't realize that they couldn't do this, but, you know, they get under contract on a home and they go to, you know, JCPenney's or Macy's, and they're going to buy all new furniture for the place. And somebody said, well, you know, you're buying all this furniture for your new big house. if you apply for this credit card, you get like 15% off. And so they applied for a credit card, and sure enough, that was enough to ding them. Or, you know, it's always, we hear nightmare stories about people driving up to the closing table in a brand new Mercedes, and you know, then that's enough to kick them off the loan. So just before you do anything on your finances while you're in that pre-qualification home hunting stage, definitely just clear it with the lender real quick. Hey, can I do this? Just always double check and keep in mind that you basically have, like I said, a magnifying glass on your finances at that time. So now we get into a little bit more of the fun part, you know, and it's actually the finding of the home. You know, a good agent is going to, you know, talk with you and get your needs and wants analysis, and see, you know, if what you're pre-qualified for, you know, where that's gonna, you know, be the most sensible. You know, learn about the market. Like I said, you know, seller's market versus buyer's market, you know, what we're seeing in prices right now, how quick stuff is moving. Because, you know, I'll tell you right now, you know, basically, you know, anything, especially under about the 400,000 mark, when it's priced correctly, is moving very quick right now. We're basically, you know, the same conditions that you would see in a spring market. So just learning about that and the, you know, realizations that, you know, and then as you go on, as this is a learning process, you know, refining that search, taking stuff down as you learn areas, you want to take cities out, add in, it can be a process. So, you know, a lot of times people are looking at homes on Zillow and such, and, you know, Zillow is, you know, somewhat user-friendly, and it's definitely a free resource for people, but you'll definitely want to get on because everything is there we go. So, you know, you definitely want to get on that realtor's search site because it is going to be the most accurate, the best info. I'm under contract on a home right now, and in our FMLS system, it is, you know, active under contract, just switched to pending, and my buyers are calling me like, hey, we looked in Zillow, our home still says it's for sale. Are they going to sell? I'm like, nope, that's Zillow for you. You know, if you think a home is active on Zillow, you know, they're about, you know, 2 to 3 days behind sometimes. So you'll definitely want to get on like a realtor's, actually what realtors see and what they put it into search site. So, you know, typically buyers, you know, they're looking out for, you know, the kind of shiny stuff to the eyes, you know, the layout, the space, will it work for them as far as their location to works and, you know, schools. You know, Atlanta, we all know that we definitely, you know, can definitely have some traffic. So, you know, definitely making sure that you plot out your routes and making sure that it'll work for you, and features and amenities of, you know, the home, neighborhood, all that stuff. But, you know, me as an agent, you know, I look out for, once you find that home, a lot of the bigger things, you know, how the home compares in terms to, you know, in size and layout and value to other homes in the area. You know, is it overpriced? Is it, you know, right on price? Is it going to be a hard potential resale because it's got a factor that maybe you're okay with, but most buyers wouldn't be? And then, of course, the big ticket items such as, you know, roofs, HVACs, maintenance, structural concerns, all the big things that are, you know, could be a big drain on your pocketbook, is definitely something that an agent will look out for because, you know, granted, those new countertops and fancy light fixture may be nice, but those are very small in price point compared to a new roof or HVAC and some of the problems that those could bring to you. So, you know, just real quick, if some people are considering, because this is a very popular, you know, first-time home buyer options, if you're considering, you know, a condo or a townhome, you know, basically, you know, the pros of those are, you know, it's definitely going to be cheaper. You're usually not going to have as much yard work. So if, you know, you're not into that yet, or you just want to, you know, kind of a smoother transition from renting to actually owning a place, that's probably the easiest way you could do it. A lot of them are going to have amenities, you know, like swimming pools, playgrounds, tennis courts, stuff like that, and a little bit of a community atmosphere. So, you know, biggest cons are that, you know, you're going to have a shared ownership of the place, so, you know, shared walls, and, you know, it's not just yours. You know, if your neighbor leaves their trash can out or, you know, whatever, that's, you know, all factors that, you know, you'd have to deal with. You have ownership of actually the space inside the building, not the whole thing. Homeowner fees are shared maintenance costs. So, you're definitely going to have higher HOA fees there. Granted, sometimes, you have to look as far as to what those HOA fees pay for. Sometimes they're high and they include a lot of things. Sometimes they're high and they don't include a lot. And then same way, vice versa on the side. Sometimes they're cheaper and they include a lot. Sometimes they're cheaper and they basically no frills, don't include anything. So, and they're totally different from, condo complex from one to the other, and same way with townhomes. And, they usually, do have rules. Sometimes that's something that may not be a con if, you kind of won't, if you're okay with those rules, you may see that as a pro, but, sometimes, they can have breed restrictions on pets, noise restrictions. So, you're definitely still in that kind of that, really tight knit community atmosphere that, definitely has its pros and cons as well. New construction, we don't have tons of new construction in Atlanta, especially at the typical, starter home buyer price range. And you usually have to get up to, the more northern metro areas, but that's painting it with pretty broad strokes. There's definitely are, some new construction options. As you can probably imagine, new construction is definitely price per square foot is going to be more expensive, but it is new. You're going to have warranties on a lot of the things inside the home. Your HVACs, roofs, every appliance that's in there. Toilet seats never been sat on, totally new from the ground up. You're going to be, locked into a price there. How we negotiate on that is a little bit different. It's really hard to negotiate on price when it comes to new construction. We can more negotiate for things like maybe closing cost or incentives, depending on if you're doing a ground up new construction or a home that's already built. But it's typically pretty hard to get aggressive on their list price, just because, a builder wouldn't want to sell a home, too cheap whenever he has to sell 3 or 4 more down the street. And a couple of the cons is, features as if you can't get those negotiated in, what they advertise as their base price may not include, as you walk through the model home, what you're looking at. The base price may be $300, but to get that model home, it may be closer to $400. So, there's definitely some, research that you have to do there. Sometimes the future neighborhood can be uncertain. Sometimes they may add another phase, or, if you are, one of the first ones in there, they may, depending on the bylaws, may change their style. So, that's not always, going to be clear cut laid out. You may be living in a construction zone basically for a little bit. And then sometimes amenities are usually the last thing to go in. So sometimes you may live there for, a couple of years before even the amenities are built, just depending on when you move in. And a lot of times the closing date, if you're doing a ground up build, can be pretty far out. And as rain comes, could be pushed away. So if you're on a tight time frame, you definitely want to make sure that you have some flexibility with your living situations. So once you find the home, then we get into the nitty gritty of actually negotiating the offer. First step is, of course, the first thing people think of is price. Sometimes if it's a really, multiple offers, there's definitely things that an expert agent can do there to get you that home when there's multiple offers. Basically, if there's multiple offers, you can be pretty sure of the value. It's the ones that are overpriced, that sit on market for a long time, that you really have to, the first step is, of course, to look at the comps in the neighborhood and in the area and, see what the best fair price for it is. However, there are a lot of other terms that are really important in an offer, not just price. Things along closing costs, due diligence periods, which is basically a contingency. Things you may ask for on the front end, as far as, stuff to get repaired or stuff to be transferred to you. So just, closing dates, something that's negotiable as well. So just keep in mind that there's a lot more to an offer than just price. There's a lot of other terms in there as well. In contingencies, anytime I say contingencies, just think of a possible chance for you to leave the contract. You know, you're basically saying, I will buy this house contingent that X happens. You know, there's finance contingencies. There's a appraisal contingency to make sure the home appraises. But the biggest one that we have here in Georgia is our due diligence period. So that is typically within 7 to 10, sometimes I can get 14 days of once you're under contract. So, you know, you submit your offer, you know, that may take, it may be instant that the seller just takes your offer right off. Sometimes it may be 2 to 3 days of negotiations. Sometimes it's even longer than that, but typically, you know, not too much longer than 2 to 3 days. Once we actually go under contract, that's when that due diligence period and all the contingency time frames start counting down. So in Georgia, our due diligence period is a lot different than other states. You can leave the contract for literally any reason in those first 7 to usually 10 days. You can leave it because you found another house. You can leave it, you don't like the paint color, literally any reason. So I like to put that out there to kind of get people off the edge of trying to make up their mind of if they want to submit an offer or not, because a lot of times if you wait, that home's already gone. You basically have 10 days, or, you know, 7 to 10 days to decide if you really want the home or not. Granted, there is some business that we have to get done during that time. You know, that during this time is when we actually get our inspection. We review it with our inspector and see what the, you know, problems are. And then we negotiate for those repairs or, you know, compensation to the buyer off those issues. So the biggest thing is on inspection is that it's for the big stuff. You know, we don't want to ask for anything that we can fix with a handyman or a trip to Home Depot. It's for stuff like cracks or crumbling in the foundation, cracks inside the house, or, you know, faulty windows. If we see any water stains on the ceilings, leaks, if we have roof problems, big safety stuff like plumbing or electrical, of course, you know, mold and termite. HVAC is probably the biggest one that I see because they're such a big money item and something that typically should only last for, you know, anywhere from 12 to 15 years, yet if they're serviced can last a lot longer than that. So that's always a point of contention for people because they are so expensive. Okay, so, you know, just to go back, kind of how we like to negotiate on things is it really depends on the issue and how I like to, at the end of the day, it's totally up to the buyer of what you want to ask for. However, depending on the issue is how I will advise you to negotiate for it. Some issues I don't mind if the homeowner fix. Some issues I prefer the homeowner to fix because there's things that, you know what, that may not be a big deal, but we're just going to ask them to fix it. I don't care if it costs $10 or $10,000, just fix it. We just want to come to the, you know, show up for our final walkthrough and it be fixed. Some things are things that I like to get compensation for in the terms of closing costs for you, and so that you can do the work once you move in. Sometimes that's easier because we don't have anything to really check out for on the final walkthrough. We're not going to hold up closing, but the biggest reason I do that is so that any warranties are going to be in your name. You get to pick who does the work, and we definitely have a lot of you know, vendors here that we could, you know, recommend to you for just about anything. And so that's the biggest thing. You know, you can probably imagine, you know, most sellers are pretty you know, act with good faith, but, you know, we never want to ask somebody who's trying to get the most for their home to do a repair that they're probably going to do the cheapest way possible. So depending on what the issue is how, you know, I like to kind of ask for it. So once we get through that and we get through all the rest of our, you know, financing and appraisal contingencies, appraisal contingency is typically 21 days from that binding agreement date. And, you know, every once in a while when these prices go up, we have, you know, an appraisal problem. But the first step, whenever we have appraisal that, you know, comes back low, you know, that's basically a lender's appraisal going out and say, hey, you're under contract for $265, but this home's only worth $250. First step is to go ahead and ask the seller to reduce it to that price. I've been pretty successful in being able to do this. Now, granted, they don't absolutely have to do that. However, it's pretty easy, has been pretty easy to get it done because you have a third party basically saying that, hey, here is what your home is worth. And, there's comps on there. And as long as, all those are right, it's not the seller saying here's how much it's worth. It's not the buyer, the buyer's agent, the listing agent. It's a, neutral third party. And the appraisal is the best thing to make sure that you don't overpay for the home. Sometimes when people get in multiple offers, or, they feel they haven't been able to get a seller down to what price they wanted the home, I always tell them, just keep in mind that we always have this an appraisal. That appraisal is your, last chance opportunity to make sure that you truly don't overpay for a home. But then we do a quick final walkthrough before we close, just to make sure that, typically I ask for receipts to be supplied, if they did any work before closing, so that way we know everything's done. And then we show up to the home just to make sure that, nothing crazy has happened, that, there's been no water leak since the seller's moved out, or no one, poked a hole in the wall with the couch on the way out. And then after that, we go to closing. So, we do have table closings here in Georgia. So, we just basically bring your ID. But before you go, just a couple of the other, kind of money items that you could, people are like, other than down payment, earnest money is typically 1% of purchase price. If you terminate during that due diligence period that we talked about, which is that 7 to 10 days, that money is immediately refunded back to you. And most people just use that earnest money as basically, they just roll it right into their down payment. Closing costs are typically, 2 to 3% of the loan amount. And, it always depends on, lender, title fees, appraisal fees, lawyer fees, all that. And depending on your cash on hand is how you'll want to, as we were talking about the offer earlier, how you'll want to structure that offer. Or, sometimes during inspections, we'll get that money, some of that money back as well. An inspection with a good inspection company, you're probably going to be around the $400 to $450 range. The bigger the home, smaller the home, that it can be, it can vary. Inspections, definitely something that you get what you pay for. So, talk with your agent and make sure that, they have a good company they use, because the cheapest is probably not the best. And, a good agent will probably save you at least, if not more, than your inspection money off of what they find. So it's definitely money well spent. If you want to get a survey, those are typically, about $400 to $500 to, kind of find out the property lines. Most people don't get one, but if we have a weird property that, we see a fence that's weird, we definitely, want to make sure that all that's good to go. And then, there can be other fees as well, home warranties, HOA initiation fees, but you'll know that before you go under contract, or, if it's not a big fee, something that you find out, kind of in the contract once you get all your disclosures. And then you'll want to pay your homeowner's insurance, which is required, 1 year up front. And then, you'll of course want to have, cash on hand for, anything you want to do for the property, to make it move-in ready, to make it happen for you. If you write a contract on a home that, hey, I absolutely have to have this carpet replaced before I move in, just keep that in mind as well. So, once we go to closing, it's pretty easy. Everything has been, if they're done right, can be pretty stress-free, because all the big things have been worked out to that point. And so, definitely the biggest goal is to have a nice, smooth closing. Should only take about an hour. And that's basically it. Once you actually close and we've, popped the champagne and we've celebrated, you'll definitely want to protect your investment. It's just like anything that you buy, a car, you'll want to change the oil in it and, run it through the car wash. A home, in order to, maintain your equity, perform that routine maintenance, get your, HVAC serviced, once a year at least, twice a year preferred. Keep everything updated, up to nice. You don't got to go crazy, but you can't sell your home for, your neighbors who have updated stuff over 10 years for the same price. So, just do that so that you get some enjoyment out of it as well. Um, you'll definitely want to, watch for signs of leaks, damage, wear, and just fix all the little problems or big problems as they come along. Don't, wait and do just, one big, don't wait till it's a huge problem before you do it. It's just a lot easier that way. And of course, keep all your receipts for everything you do on file. And any repairs you have, that'll make it a lot easier come time for you to sell. And you'll also be able to say, justify a higher price if you have what you've actually done to the home over the years. So always keep that stuff on file. So as far as getting started, like I said, when we were doing the kind of timeline, is that you definitely want to start with an agent, no matter if your time frame's in the next 2 years, 3 years. Go ahead and talk with the agent, so you can go ahead and see what the personalized next steps are, and kind of work out a time frame. Our commitment to you here on the Curtain team is to of course keep you educated about the market. We will always be honest with you, and really listen to your wants and needs. And we have a lot of vendors on our team here that we can really help you out to make it a lot less stressful to you. That we have people that we trust to whether that's an HVAC servicer, a home stylist, whatever it is. Because we negotiate on your behalf, we take a lot of negotiation classes, make sure we're staying up to date on our contracts, that we're educated there. A lot of role playing between agent to agent to make sure that our skills are always at the top of the market. And like I said, every transaction is different, and just about every transaction may have a small problem, but our biggest thing is making sure those problems never arise. So, that's basically it. So before we, move on, I'll leave my contact info up here. Does anybody have any questions? Or I know I kind of went through everything, pretty quickly. It may have been like drinking from a fire hose, but does anybody have any specific questions about what I went over, or, anything that they're seeing in the market right now?
I have a couple questions about like the pre-approval process. So if you get pre-approved, how long is that good for? Like if you're not sure, like you're going to be buying a house now or in 6 months,
Yep.
does it last? And then if you go to multiple lenders to see what rates you get, like does that ding your credit if you're getting checked by multiple lenders?
Yep. All right. Great questions. So a pre-approval is typically good for about 60 to 90 days. However, usually if you don't buy a home within that time frame, it's a very simple call to the lender, as long as nothing has changed. If that you still have the same job, nothing crazy in the financing has changed, it's a very quick, easy call to a lender to just basically get that restarted back up again. Really easy. When it comes to, getting the actual pre-approval and, shopping around lenders, it does ding your credit. However, it's not a big ding. It's a very, very, very small ding. And then even when you bounce around to different lenders and they're all pulling your credit, the credit company looks at it from a standpoint of, they see that you are, they see that they're all lenders pulling it and that you're just shopping around rates. It's not like, you went to get a car loan, you went to the lender, you then went to get a credit card, you went, all this other stuff. So, within that time frame, they definitely are sensitive to that. And they, the way I argue is they may even look at that as even better, because you're, an educated person who's, really doing their research. But typically, what's the best thing to do is, a lot of times, if somebody comes to me with a pre-approval from, a respectable company, and, that pre-approval is good, it's really an easy time to actually shop the rate once you go under contract. You typically have 21 days during that time to really find out you have 21 days to find out who your lender is going to be. But once you go under contract, you have a lot more hard numbers to go off of. And so then, you have the actual property address to see, what closing costs are going to be and before taxes. So then at that time, you can shop around the lenders and say, hey, lender A, I have this home under contract at this, this, and this. what's your rate and what's your closing costs? Lender B, hey, for the same price, instead of kind of, you know, hypotheticals. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Let's see here. Is it, I thought I saw your name pop up. Is it Monica?
Yeah.
Okay. Just real quick, what do you see in it? I mean, because I'm always curious, if you don't mind answering for me, because, you know, I'm in the industry every day, but I want kind of a not to say an uneducated view, but just from not realtors' perspective, what are you seeing out in the market right now? Like, what's your current interpretation of what you see going on?
I mean, so I've been a lifelong renter, so this is kind of all new to me, but it seems like stuff seems to be moving quickly off the market and inventory seems low.
Gotcha. Yeah. Because at some point, you know, the buyer's expectations become reality. So I'm always just curious if I can get like a free survey. I'm always just curious to ask, like, you know, what people are seeing out there from their side of things. All right, so guys, I'm about to close up here, but I did want to say, you know, we do have, actually, they're here behind me here. We can get you for, you know, attending this webinar, we can get you a copy of your first time home. It's currently being updated, you know, to a couple of the little more things, but you know, as far as internet searching, but you know, it's still definitely basically everything that I went into. You know, it's not a very deep read. It's a, you know, pretty easy read, quick, lots of visuals and graphs and such. So if anyone would like a copy of that, you know, you of course, you know, have our, you know, contact information here on the Curtain team. Send us an email, shoot us a text, give us a call, and give us your address, and you know, we will get this book over to you. Or, you know, if you're comfortable to meet in person after, you know, all this COVID stuff, you know, you can you know, meet with us for a more one-on-one buyer's consultation. Or if not, we can do one of these right here, one of these Zoom calls. And really go into everything. I can pull up searches on my computer. So we've gotten definitely really creative in these times. So if anybody wants that book, just go ahead and reach out. But anyone got any questions before I close up here? All right. Well, guys, you got our contact info. If there's anything we can ever do for y'all, let us know. And, you know, just keep in mind that, you know, no matter when you're looking to buy a home, if it's in the next 2 to 3 years, give us a ring, and let's see what we can do to get you in a home. All right, guys. Thanks for stopping by. Y'all have a good one.
Thanks.
Thank you.